and welcome to the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast brought to you by Provenzano's Deli in West Haven, Connecticut. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast live over Facebook today. Of course, our podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Today on the program, our guest is Gil Fried, chair of the world-renowned Sport Management Department here at the University of New Haven. And with me, as always, is Dr. Z, Shayan Zenger, our athletic director at UNH. Dr. Z, great to see you. How you doing today?
I'm good. How you doing, J-Dub? But, I noticed you're moving around your house. Mm-hmm. I'm moving around houses.
Yeah.
so we never quite know which background we're going to get on these shows.
No, I think I've settled on this background here. This is our library at our house. And, because, again, everyone's got to have, like, the bookshelf in back. Yeah. And so I got a few books and some pictures. But you also have to be careful of, noise and, light, natural light, and being able to control all that. So I've used a couple of different spots. I've been in a comfy chair in our den. I've been in front of the fireplace in our den. I've tried the dining rooms. I think I've kind of settled on this one now. Yeah. And you've got your spot there in Branford, out looking out over the Thimble Islands for what? Another couple of weeks, is that right?
About 3 weeks, and I'm going to make use of it. It's just so calming and peaceful to sit here and visit with you. And if people could see my view, they just wouldn't believe it. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. It's a beautiful day here on the shoreline today.
Maybe one of these days before you move full time over to West Haven, maybe we'll have you do a portion of the show outside so we can see the Thimble Islands behind you.
Absolutely. Get Blackbeard out there and a couple others roaming around still.
Well, it's May, so of course that means it's graduation season for colleges and universities across the country. In years past, you're doing it in person. Our commencement was supposed to be this coming Saturday at the Toyota Presents Oakdale Theater in Wallingford, where UNH has had its commencement for years and years and years. But of course, us, this year, us, like every other college university here in the U.S. and certainly around the world, is going to be done virtually. President Kaplan has said he wants to do an in-person graduation at some point in time. When that is, that's up to, people at the state, local, and federal level. But what I wanted to bring up, Dr. Z, is you've been to a lot of commencements over the years, right? Your own, your kids, as a coach and as an athletic administrator. So you've seen a lot of commencement speeches. What stands out to you, or who stands out to you with regard to commencement speeches and what was said at some of these commencements?
That I could, you really spark a lot of thoughts there, J-Dub. It's going to take me a while to get them all together. I remember growing up, pastors' kids always got made fun of for being pastors' kids and having to be in church, all throughout the week and 3 times on Sunday and whatnot. I'm the son of education professors, and I'll tell you what, graduation started early and often in my life. And as my brother and sister graduated, I remember one of these graduations where my mom graduated with a PhD, my brother with a master's, my sister's with a baccalaureate, and oh, wow. It was a brutal week for me. I was a junior in high school. Coming up on the tail end of that, though, my own graduation from high school sticks out because my grandpa, who's one of my favorite people on earth, he had come in town he was a farmer in north central Kansas, and he and I had gone out fishing on a particular day. And all of a sudden I got that warm feeling that you missed something. And all of a sudden we packed up and ran in. I go running into the Coliseum of the local university, which was, seated 8,000. And I barely made it to my own graduation practice. And so there's that one comes to mind. And then there's just a zillion of these others. And eventually, as I became a coach, I started getting asked to speak at graduations, which I say this in a very self-deprecating manner. The first time I was asked, it was out in a rural, small town in Kansas. And I thought that when you're asked to speak, you were meant to speak, for 20 minutes, half an hour. I don't know how long I went, but it was too long. The last time I spoke at a high school graduation, it was 7 minutes max. Less is more. And yes. So I'm picking on myself because I'm thinking of all the graduation speakers I've heard, and it's the ones who speak less that stand out. And so I'll finish with 2. One I did not see live, and that was the Admiral of the U.S. Navy, whom eventually became the president or chancellor of the University of Texas that wrote a book out of his speech called Make Your Bed. I think it's the best graduation speech I've ever heard. I watched it on video on YouTube, and then I read the book. And John Mays, who's offline right now, back in the green room, and I kind of built a workout based off of this. That you start every day making your bed or doing your push-ups, and the day goes well. Okay. Secondly, the best I ever saw live, and I'm not sure it was the speaker as much as I was in attendance at the Citadel about 5 years ago for a graduation of a son of a good friend. And just the pageantry of those places, whether it be Air Force, Army, Navy, the Citadel, VMI, that was an experience unto itself.
I got two stories for you. I'll start with my graduation. I graduated with an undergraduate degree from Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York, back in May of 1993. Our commencement speaker was James Earl Jones.
Wow.
Yeah, the famous actor, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you can just sit there for hours on end listening to his voice, right?
Yeah.
He has one of those few voices that's where you can just be enamored and just listen. He could read the phone book and everybody would be interested, right?
Yeah.
So I actually don't remember a lot about what he said. I mean, so much time has gone by, and I think we were all as students just kind of like, wow, I mean, this is James Earl Jones. This is the voice of Darth Vader talking to us, right?
Yeah.
I think from what I recall, I think he was talking about, he kind of said like all the world's a stage. And I don't think he's quoting a Rush song in that, but basically he was saying, look, because of his background in theater, in the fine arts, he looked at the world as a stage, and we all have roles to play on this stage. And, there are no small roles in theater or movies or TV, just as there are no small roles in life. I actually went looking for the speech today, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it online. I'm sure Marist has it archived somewhere, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I'd love to be able to get a chance to go back and, read it. So I'm like, oh, okay, now this is exactly what he said. The one thing we all wanted him to say was, "May the Force be with you." But because that's not Darth Vader's line, right? Darth Vader never said that in the Star Wars movies. He didn't say that at our commencement. Now, flash forward to Harvard's commencement in 2017, and I did find this online today. James Earl Jones did say to the graduating class at Harvard in 2017, "May the Force be with you." And of course, everyone went crazy.
Wow. So I don't know that it could be appropriate, but I have my oldest son's named Luke. And so throughout his life, I would often go, "Luke, I am your father." But I can't do the voice, that James Earl Jones does, right?
Right. None of us can. That's not why you named your son Luke, right? You didn't name him after Luke Skywalker, I'm guessing.
No. Poor kid, he had to put up with that some. Every Luke out there does, right?
Yeah.
But there's worse things.
There is.
He could have been man.
Yeah. So that's one story, and that's a pretty good commencement speaker, but I got one that can top that. My mom graduated from Springfield College in 1964. Her commencement speaker, Cheyenne, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
No way.
How cool is that?
No way.
Right? So, again, with time having gone by, my mom had forgotten most of what Dr. King said. Again, it's the same type of thing with me, with James Earl Jones. You're kind of sitting there in awe of this man, one of the great leaders of all time, certainly the 20th century, but certainly one of the most influential people of all time. So she was able to, through a connection, a mutual connection, was able to dig up Dr. King's speech from Springfield College in 1964. They have it archived on their website, which is smart. 11 pages long, this speech was. So he hit on a lot of topics, but basically Dr. King started off telling the story or retelling the story of Rip Van Winkle, which we all know, right? But a lot of us forget about that story. When old Rip went up the mountain in Hudson, New York, and slept for 20 years, he missed out on a lot. So in the storybook that Washington Irving wrote way back when, Rip went up the mountain. He passed an inn in Hudson, New York. On the side of the inn was a picture of King George III of England.
Right.
Rip comes down the mountain 20 years later after sleeping. Now the picture is George Washington, the president of the United States. So in 20 years, Rip slept and missed a lot. Basically, Dr. King said he slept through a revolution, which he did. And Dr. King encouraged and warned everybody that was listening in that commencement in Springfield College in 1964 that we should be aware that we should never be sleeping through a revolution, right? It's important to stay awake and be aware of social things happening around us, not only us individually as Americans, but America as a whole. He talked about, we can't isolate or ignore the problems around us, whether it's poverty, racial injustice, or war. That was his message back in 1964. And Shay, and those words still ring true today, maybe even more so than back then.
Wow. So two things come to mind. One, those of you who are from the Northeast, the access that you have to the great minds and personalities of the world is just so much more real here than where I'm from. Those are names that you just talk about when you grow up in the Midwest. And I love growing up there, but already in just my short time here, the access to New York and Boston and the people in these areas, and even in Connecticut, we've got our own folks hiding out here and there that you don't know are in and amongst us. But even the access we have on this podcast to different people is pretty phenomenal, and we'll roll that out as we go on. My second thought is, I don't know, after you talk about James Earl Jones and Martin Luther King Jr., where we're going to go from here on the we might as well just shut it down, J-Dub. That's it. Sorry, Gil, our guest. We're done.
Yeah. Well, if anyone can come close, I think it'll be Gil. We'll bring out Gil in just a minute, but I want just two quick notes about that story with Dr. King. So he ended his speech, the commencement address to Springfield College, the same way he ended his I Have a Dream speech, which he had delivered the summer before, August 1963, out in front of the Washington Monument, right? We've all seen that over the years. And it's free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. He said it in August of 63. He repeated those words in the commencement speech in June of 1964. The other interesting thing about this story, and my mom has told me this many, many times over the years, is that Dr. King almost did not make this commencement address. He was in jail in Florida the night before. He had been arrested for a peaceful protest and was sitting in the St. Johns County Jail in Florida.
Wow.
Springfield College flew down, paid his bail of $900, got him on a plane, and got him back to their campus in Western Massachusetts in time for his commencement on Sunday, June 14th, 1964.
And he was able to gather his thoughts and deliver the commencement address. That's pretty amazing. Wow.
Yeah. It's an amazing story, and all the layers beneath the story are even more amazing. And I love, I've loved my mom telling me that story for years, and I'm glad I've had a chance to relay it here as we think about commencement. So, as Shayan said, it is hard to top this, but we're grateful to have Gil Fried, who is the chair of our world-renowned sport management department here at the University of New Haven, and Gil has some pretty impressive stories himself. And Gil has done pretty much everything that you can think of, and we'll get into that with him. But we welcome him from the green room. And Gil, thanks for joining the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you guys for having me. It's great to have this interaction, and in these trying times when we're all so isolated, it's always great to connect with friends. So thank you for having me.
No question. Dr. Z was just saying the same thing when we were chatting before we came on the air, right? How, Dr. Z, you look forward to these, whether it's Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, you look forward to these virtual face-to-face meetings.
Well, first of all, the podcast kind of feels like game day. We have no other competition right now. Not that this is a competition, but it changes my routine for the day. And, I actually shave and do some other things I'm not doing every day. I pick out my alternating colors of this top that you guys give me a hard time about. I've got 4 or 5 of them, so I don't always wear the same one. They're just, I've got blue and I've got gray, right? You know that it's the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. But whether it be this or other Zoom calls, it's my human interaction. And prior to my son and my wife moving here a couple of weeks ago, we've talked about this. I was alone and isolated for a good long time, and that's not my nature. I'm an extrovert, not an introvert. And so these are important to me. They really are.
Gil, you must be on these calls all the time, right?
Until about 2 months ago, I was never on a Zoom call. And now I'm doing probably about 2 or 3 a day, primarily media. I've just while you guys had me in the green room, I had the USA Today call me. They want to interview me, and I told them, look, I can't do it right now. How about at 5 o'clock? So I'll have another presentation at 5 o'clock now. And a lot of it has to do with what are we going to do? How are we going to relaunch? And everyone is so concerned about where the sport industry is going and what's going to happen. And they want answers. And it's sometimes like with students where they're saying, okay, this is going on. What's the solution? And you feel bad when you don't have a solution because people want an answer. But this is uncharted territory and we don't have all the answers. So it gets frustrating for people when they want to know, well, when is football going to relaunch again? Well, you could ask 20 experts, they're going to give you about 37 different opinions. Mm-hmm. And it's just no one really knows because there's so many variables at play. And that's what makes it pretty exciting from my side, since I'm a risk management specialist. And that's what I really look forward to examining, is the way to make sports safer, as well as other events. So it's not just sport, it's concerts, it's anything else. And seeing what people are doing, what might be the next evolution of how to move things forward. Things that we often don't think about are the questions that are being asked to me. For example, I had a newspaper reporter ask me, so are they going to allow spitting anymore in baseball, whether chewing tobacco or sunflower seeds? And that deals with, like, David is the sponsor for Major League Baseball for sunflower seeds. Are they going to say, look at, you know what, we're not going to allow sunflower seeds to be eaten and chewed and spit out in the locker room or in the dugout or any place else? So what does that mean to that sponsorship contract with David? But also, if that affects terms and conditions of the work environment, that will have to go through the union. And then that becomes a whole nother story, because they already have a big dispute heading to the union right now about how baseball might relaunch and whether or not they're going to be doing any salary cap issues or anything like that. So these are the kind of questions that I think are exciting from my perspective, because I get to think outside the box and then convey that when I'm asked questions. So another one that was just raised is, well, how about bathrooms and the porta potties? How are they going to be using those? What will they use to do that? I just read about a golf tournament that's going to go on, I think, next week in Ohio, where they're going to have RFIDs in every badge for the spectators. And so it's going to be on their badge, and they're going to track them. And if they're too close to people, they're going to go and contact them and say, look, you're too close. So it brings up the new norm, which is going to be software that could track people and plot them out and see how close they are to one another. I mean, this sounds like Big Brother, but that is what people are doing in order to comply with government mandates. Because if you do not comply with government mandates, I can guarantee you your insurance coverage will not protect you. You're not going to get any protection from any potential liability issues that are going to be examined. I know the Senate's looking at trying to give liability protection to businesses that open up. You're probably going to lose that. And if anyone gets the virus, you're probably going to get sued. So people are going to be ultra receptive to understanding what are the rules and the mandates in the government and to apply them in order to be as safe as possible. So that's kind of stuff I've been covering with a lot of the Zoom calls I've been getting.
J-Dub, that was really heavy. That might have gone above my head. But I don't want to miss this. Did you understand that on just our third or fourth live podcast, we bumped USA Today? Did you pick up on that?
That's what I took away from his answer. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You're talking up here, and you and I are going, we bumped USA Today.
Yeah, way off. I mean, and they're calling me from, like, Colorado. Who cares about them?
Oh,
we're talking about New Haven here.
So, J-Dub, I know you have a bunch of questions, but I'm the new guy to the area, and you and Gil both interact in the sports management department. And tell us, it is literally world famous, and why is that? What's the history of our department? And for our listeners who aren't from the New Haven family, can you kind of give them some background on that?
So first, if they're not part of our family, become part of our family. We welcome you with open arms. You can join us on Facebook. You can contact us any way you want, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. We've been around for now 36 years. So we're one of the oldest sport management programs in the world, which is real nice. We're the second oldest in the United States from a business school. So we have a lot of different roots that really have been so well established. And that goes to our alumni who end up being the mentors for the next generation, like Rob Thompson, those kind of individuals out there who are willing to give back to the students. We have people that are commissioners of professional leagues like Nick Sakevich with the National Lacrosse League, to people that are working for professional teams, collegiate teams, sporting good companies, youth sport organizations, YMCAs, you name it. It's quite diverse. And that's actually very exciting from my perspective, because not all of our students want to be the next general manager of the New York Yankees. Yeah. In fact, I don't see anyone becoming the next general manager of the Yankees until Brian Cashman steps down. Yeah. So, let's knock that off our radar and let's look at other options. So I just got an email today that the Washington Nationals want to set up a program with us to hopefully connect with our students and get them into the pipeline for possible jobs for the Nationals. We already placed one student with them last year, and we hope we're going to be placing more with them as we move forward. And we have a similar relationship with the Yankees. And I think part of it is, as a business school, they know that we train students at a higher level. We're not trying to turn them into the next coach or something like that. We're trying to empower them with business skills and give them the tools that they can succeed out there. And so part of that is we have like a mentoring program, which is phenomenal and connects existing students with people in the industry. We have a phenomenal internship program where we place people all over the world. We've had internships in Australia, Spain, Mexico, Germany, Italy, Canada. And some of these are paid internships that we have available to our students. And so it's a great opportunity to really get that hands-on experience, because I think that's the most important part of this industry, is the hand-on experience. So some of your listeners might not know what this is, but I'm going to throw it out there to go down memory lane: a Rolodex. And a Rolodex is so critical in almost any industry, because it's a lot of who you know. And the faculty that we have at the University of New Haven, whether it's full-time faculty or adjuncts, all have a strong base of connections and people that they work with. And it's just phenomenal when you can call and ask somebody, hey, look at, you know what, I need some help. Can you help me place an intern or find a job for someone or do a research project? And all these people come back and say, yes, I'm willing to help. And that is, I think, probably one of our biggest benefits is the fact that we have that infrastructure. So when we want to do something to benefit our students, it's a lot easier than pounding the pavement. We're members of a lot of different organizations out there. For example, I'm a member of the Stadium Managers Association and the International Association of Venue Managers. If someone comes to me and says, look, you know what, I want to work in facility management, I could just send a quick email to a couple people that are members of these organizations, and they'll respond. And all of a sudden, a student is talking to someone who might be the manager of a large stadium, let's say like Foxborough, so Gillette Stadium, or they might be looking at Citi Field, or whichever facility it might be. It doesn't even have to be in this area, that they can find somebody that will answer their questions and help them in their career journey. And I think that is probably the most important thing, because, yeah, it's critical to get that education in the classroom, but it's just as critical to be able to apply it and then to have the connections that could help you get your foot in the door and then crack that door wide open so you can get in and get a good job.
In addition to being a faculty, an adjunct faculty member here at the University of New Haven, I'm also a graduate student in our sport management program, and Gil would be my advisor. And we just, we can have a few laughs over this, but this podcast is going to serve a lot of purposes. but this is also my internship now. So,
and I'll be evaluating it on a weekly basis.
Yeah. Dr. Z, I don't know how to make coffee, so I can't do that for you.
So I have no academic rank at the university at this point. I have at other schools, and I teach an English lit course, so I can't help you. But I'd have given you a degree for time served. Your experience, J-Dub, I'd just hang that diploma on the wall right now.
Hear that, Gil?
I have to push back. As an academician, we don't allow past credit for past work, even though you might have suffered so much in that past life. Yeah. And I think one of the fun things is that this industry is changing so quickly that part of the reason why an educational program can be so cutting edge and so highly ranked internationally as we have been for years is that we don't teach like from these old like yellow notes that are fading and you could barely see it or anything else like that. We do current events, and you can't get more current than what we're dealing with right now. And I'm starting and J-Dub is going to be starting as well, a sport finance class on Thursday. And this is as real world as it's going to get. How do we pull out of this financially? We just have youth sports trying to petition Congress for $8.5 billion in stimulus assistance to avoid going bankrupt. And I just saw the Canadian Football League has asked the Canadian government for money to avoid bankruptcy. I mean, all across Adidas and their sales have plummeted. It's affecting this entire industry. But that also means that there's going to be opportunities. There's going to be some great opportunities. And the question becomes, how can you leverage a bad situation to turn into a good situation for you as a career or for an industry? And that's what we're hoping to be able to cover.
When you hear that Gil wrote the book, he actually did write the book. It's over his shoulder. He's written many textbooks, including the sport finance class, which leads me to ask Gil, because you've touched upon it here. It's one thing for colleges and pro leagues to come back. They do have some money and will have at some point some money coming in from TV contracts, sponsorships, things of that nature. But you can draw a line between the college and the pro game, and then the recreational. You mentioned YMCA, youth sports. What is that world going to look like in the very near future?
To be frank, we don't know. And part of that is depending upon the government and what they allow. So if we take a look at restaurants and they're going to allow people to sit outside as long as they socially distance, I think outdoor sports are going to come back quicker because there have been a number of studies that take a look at exposure and the time of exposure, the distance away from people, things like that. And a lot of the research has basically been showing that those that are outdoors, those that are spread out from other people, have less likelihood. That's why they have very few cases, if any, that they know about of people getting the virus from shopping or things like that. It's more of sitting in a restaurant or being at a birthday party or being at this environment where you're so close to other people, like cafeterias and stuff like that. So I think we're going to see a slow rollout on the outdoor sport activities. And I'm in the middle of writing something, and we have already, this looks like about 30 something points of how a Babe Ruth League will be able to relaunch. And they sent me this asking me to review it for them. This is a Babe Ruth League in California. And I've already added about 30 new items to their list. They thought they had a complete list. They didn't look at everything such as insurance and whether or not insurance might say, look at, you open up, you don't got insurance coverage. Sorry. To what to do with carpools. Should you allow people to carpool together to go to a game? Because now all of a sudden they could say, hey, look at, you were the ones that were promoting us to go together. You can't say that anymore. You know, are you going to allow people to go off to pizza parties afterwards? How about sleepovers? You know, all these different things. So you can say, okay, they could go out into the field and play. But that's only one part of a league or organization. So then you have to look at everything else. Like if you're looking at gyms, what are gyms going to allow? You know, are they going to say, look at, after you're done with equipment, we don't want you wiping it down, because there's potential liability if they wipe it down and they don't wipe it down correctly. So it might be that they'll say, look at, we mandate that when you're done, someone's going to have to go and clean the machine thoroughly before the next person can use it. So those are the kind of things that we don't know yet because we're waiting for guidance from the government. But when we look at how we can develop our own rules and regulations, they could just become so intense and one after another that an owner might just say, look at, what, I don't want to open up my gym. I don't want to expose myself to this. I mean, just take a look at like a trampoline park and how difficult that's going to be to clean that thoroughly. It's going to be quite intense. But we've had that for athletic departments for years, for example, where we've had the threat of MRSA or staph infection, and we've had to use chemicals to spray the entire fields, whether it's turf or natural grass, and to spray it several times a year to minimize the potential for MRSA and staph infection. So we have experience. I think this just ups the game so much more. And a lot of that is that people are going to be scared. People don't want to go and participate because they're fearful. And especially if you're taking a look at older people, and this is really critical for professional sports like baseball and the NFL, where their average fan is over the age of 50. And so they're in the more dangerous category to begin with. How are you going to encourage them to want to go out? So I agree that there's a significant difference between the professional ranks and everything else. We just don't have all the answers to that. Just like I could see Dr. Z, do you have any answers as to what's going to happen in collegiate athletics when people are not going to be getting the revenue streams that they had and maybe not get the number of fans coming to games in the future? And that's going to be a huge impact on the bottom line.
That's a scary conversation. And I'm on the phone daily with folks in other leagues, our conference, the NCAA, et cetera. I'm better at answering the philosophical pieces of it right now in terms of, for example, I think we're all having to look in the mirror and go, why did we get in this business in the first place? Student athletes, coaches, staff, administrators, et cetera. And it's boiling down to, we want to play ball. We want to compete. We want to, what's that mean for championships this next year? Our parent organization, and they ought to be focused on this. It's all about the student athlete experience and what kind of championship experience we're going to provide them. And I'm this voice over here in the wilderness kind of going, let's just play some ball. Let's go out and play catch. We start there, and we may play 7 football games this fall instead of 11 or 12. We may not have, and this is just one man saying this, but we may not have a national champion or a conference champion, but it may be that this year we will accept we got to play some games. And I don't like that, but there's a purity in that. It's almost like we go back into from the mouths of babes, right? We go back into our childhood, and we just as being around a friend. I had a friend on the drive over here today saying, hey, I can't wait till we can get together with our spouses and break bread. It almost got emotional. That's something we would have done that 2 weeks ago. Well, that may happen in 3 weeks. And I'm looking forward to that day, just like I look forward to the day that my son and I, who go play catch, or I'm learning in New England, have a catch, right? That's a whole new concept to me, having a catch, that we can actually do it with a couple other individuals. That'll be a big day.
Gil, you mentioned fear. You brought it up just a couple of minutes ago. Let me put it to you this way. You're a Mets fan. When fans are allowed to come back, are you going to be scared to go to a Mets game at Citi Field?
So my nickname is Dr. Doom and Gloom. And I think I've earned that. I think a great point of reference is my oldest daughter came back for a Thanksgiving dinner a couple of years ago and said, Dad, you ruined concerts for me forever. And I was like, huh? And she goes, yeah, you've handled so many concert cases that when I go to a concert, I'm like, oh, I can't sit there. My dad had a case where someone got injured there and someone got injured here. And no, we can't be near a mosh pit. We can't be. And so I said, score one for Dad, that I put the fear of God into them. And all my kids, I think, are the same way. But I think the flip side of that is I cannot go and just enjoy a game myself because I'm so trained in terms of safety, whether it's from my training back in Israel to, everything that I have been doing here, that I'm constantly vigilant, looking for an intended package that, no one's attending to it, or what people are doing, what security is doing, where their location might be, things like that. That's the kind of stuff that I pay attention to. So I don't look at it like a typical fan, like I'm just going to go there to cheer. So with that said, I think I would feel comfortable going as long as I know that they were following best practices. So what does the best practice mean? I know a number of facilities now are looking at having the health passport, where you're going to have a photo ID, a government ID, and then you're going to have proof that either you have been tested recently and you're not a carrier, or that you've had it and you have the antibodies and that you can go to the game now and you hopefully shouldn't be someone that could get someone sick. The problem is that we've had it in the White House where someone was tested positive a day after they tested negative. And so I think even the health passport might not be as strong. But I think having detectors to detect temperature of fans coming in, spacing people adequately enough, requiring everyone to have face masks, those are simple strategies I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of. Some of the other things that I've been seeing is some facilities are going to be replacing their handrails with copper and brass rather than stainless steel, just so that way it has some of the properties that can help kill, viruses. Having more sanitation stations, having more personnel. So this is going to drive up the cost. And this is something that, I'm looking at, where do we go as an industry? I could see the per game cost going up probably about 5 to 10% for the personnel, because just the number of people that you need and how you're going to have to change things. For example, they're saying, okay, it should all be cashless maybe. And so that takes away the one side of it, but then you have all the data side and cybersecurity and protecting the data for all these customers and their transactions. You're going to need more people in the parking lots, to more security people to say, hey, back away. You're too close to each other in tailgate areas. I mean, so you start looking and diving into it, there's going to be so much that's going to be required that to do it effectively, I think it's going to be phenomenally safe. You can't guarantee anything, but I think it's going to be very safe. I could see that they're not going to have any more buffets, that they're only going to have packaged food that's going to be available. What I've seen from some of the models that people are talking about is that you order with your phone and the food gets delivered to you, so you don't wait on the concourse anymore. That doesn't alleviate the issue of the restrooms and how we're going to be managing that, but that's going to be significant monitoring with probably a dedicated person in every restroom to constantly clean it. I mean, it's going to add a lot to the bottom line. And on top of that, you have people who are hurting financially. So I could see ticket prices, and I've been on the record for this couple of times, that it might drop about 20%. And the reason why I'm projecting that is a lot of the corporations, I think they're going to start backing out on some of their long-term deals, because in an environment that we have now, doesn't look good when you're laying off people and you're still making payments to have a luxury suite. That's going to look very bad. Just like some of the companies like the Lakers, who got a stimulus check for $4.4 million, if I'm not mistaken, then, because of negative publicity, they had to give it back, kind of thing. That's the kind of thing where I think we're going to see more and more of, what are corporations going to be doing? What are the individual season ticket holders going to do? Are they going to go from a full season plan to a mini plan in order to save money? And I think in order to attract the average fan back, the league's going to have to start reducing the ticket cost. And from the models that I've been seeing from 1/5 to 1/10 of the prior capacity is what they're going to be allowing into a stadium. That's, just take a look at that, from 60,000 to 6,000, or maybe about 10, 11, 12,000. That's a huge financial hit.
Right, because you're not going to be sitting next to each other when fans are back together, right, Gil?
Yeah, with social distancing, it's not just your seat and the seat next to you. Remember, each seat is about 18 to 21 inches wide at a stadium or arena. So in order to get 6 feet, that's more than 3 seats on either side of you, plus the seats in front of you and the seats behind you. So, when you start taking a look at it, if we're going to do, in fact, social distancing, that's going to be tough. And then one of my friends in the Stadium Managers Association said, well, what if someone scores a touchdown? How do you, what's going to happen? Because you want people to high five each other and to be excited and stuff. You're going to just look at someone and go like, and do a virtual high five. It's going to take away the entire environment. And I know that you have players like LeBron James saying, we're not going to play if there's no fans. I don't think that's going to be a big issue because they could be just like TV sets where they pump in the crowd noise and the laugh tracks and stuff like that. So I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue. But it's going to be different. And I'm not scared to go, but I know that it's only going to be opened once they hit this certain level of protection that meets government mandates, all the league mandates and stuff like that. And I think we're a ways away from that. So when it finally does happen, I think it's going to be safe.
We appreciate you putting us up at the top of your list today. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'll see you in class on Thursday, Gil.
Definitely. It's my pleasure. Look forward to seeing you in class. And this, now you get a feel for what a student has to go through with a 3-hour lecture. I can go for 3 hours without any notes. And unfortunately for my students, I guess, I don't know, but they seem to like it because it's as real world. I don't sugarcoat it or anything else. I try to be as authentic as possible. And so, right. But thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Gil Freed, the chair of our sport management program here at the University of New Haven. Gil, thanks very much. We'll see you again soon.
Sounds great. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Yep, absolutely. Dr. Z, I mean, the guy's a Renaissance man. We didn't even get a chance to get into, he owns a farm up in Massachusetts, owns and operates a farm, right? He's a lawyer. Yeah. He's a department chair. He's a professor. He serves on all these various committees. He's an author, right? Yeah. Writes all these textbooks. Yeah. He was instrumental in helping us create an esports team and program at the University of New Haven. I don't know how he has time to sleep, Dr. Z.
It's humbling, I can tell you that. It was fun just to sit back and listen.
Yeah, Gil is a great storyteller. I wanted to follow up on what he said and get your advice for the class of 2020. I mean, these are uncertain times. This is unlike anything that we've been through since the Great Depression. So sending young men and women off out of our undergraduate or graduate programs is very difficult. What words of wisdom would you have for our graduating class of 2020?
There's so many things a person could say, but what I'm going to say is probably unlike anything you would expect me to say. It came from my father. It was my dad. I used it in his eulogy, and I've used it at so many commencements since then. He had all these adages and sayings that he raised us with, and all my cousins, and that we've quoted him for years. But the biggest one was, be a rat in a maze. The path in life is not linear. And I think we make the mistake in education and in seminars and whatnot and speeches of young people coming away thinking, J-Dub or Dr. Z or Gil or so-and-so started here and they achieved this goal and this goal. And life does not go like that. Life goes like this. And my dad's metaphor analogy was, a rat goes into a maze. He hits his head on the wall. He turns, goes the other way. Keep hitting your head on the wall, turn, go the other way. Eventually you'll get through it out the other side. That's how life works. I know that's not what you thought I'd say, but life is a maze. Be a rat in a maze, and you'll turn when you're hitting your head on the wall, go another direction, and you'll eventually get out and achieve your goal.
I think that's a great piece of advice. I think that's easy for everyone to visualize and understand. One of the things I try to tell my students as we wrapped up class last night is, piggybacking off what Gil said, and that's don't be afraid to fail. We are going to fail. It's okay to fail, right? It's one thing to fail classes. It's another thing to fail in life and make mistakes. We all make mistakes and you learn from them. And the other thing I always try to get across to them is don't let fear prevent you from doing great things. We've talked about that on the podcast a little bit. if fear is real, yes, and it can paralyze us, yes, but so long as you recognize it and you move past it, it's okay. Fear is a natural reaction in the body, but you can't let it prevent you from doing great things. And I think, to me, that's what separates people who go on to do great things and those who don't. And I think the only other thing I try to tell my students is, what is success in life? Success to me equals happiness.
Yeah.
So if you're happy in your life, no matter what it is you're doing, you're successful.
That's right.
So we got a couple minutes here. I want to bring in Broccoli Rob, our producer from the back room. He's known Gil for a long time, and I'd love to get his take on what Gil said to us today. Rob, what was your takeaway? I said you've known Gil for a long time. You probably know him better than all of us here. What was your takeaway from his conversation with us today?
If there's only one sport left in the world, we certainly won't have to worry about any fans.
Yeah.
It'd be those guys, it would be those guys in a lawn chair with a cooler eating barbecue, watching the badminton. Yeah.
Yep.
So I just thought that joke would go over so much better with you too right now. Maybe I got to work on my timing. Gil's a great guy. He's been around for a long time. He's seen it from both sides. The good thing about it is that he's out there still representing, facilities and people that attend events. So he's got his finger and he's got his hand in it. He's seeing what's happening in real time. And obviously, as an attorney, you're privileged to a lot of information that connects some dots. Some things that you may not know about from a liability standpoint that is such a big part of the discussion. As much as you want to push the industry forward, there's a pullback, and that's the yin and the yang with it, especially having an attorney who's always going to be the naysayer, and he's going to be, what do you say, Dr. Doom and Gloom, but that's what attorneys are paid for. That's how they're, that's what they do. That's how they balance it all out. And, I think the question now is, and Gil didn't touch on this much, but we're going to be all pushed on how do we deliver that engagement sitting at home if we have to. So how are fans going to watch, engage, and consume sports? I think VR technology is going to play a major part of that to bring that real experience at the stadium. I could stand on the sidelines at a Green Bay Packer game or a Manchester United game. I want to be able to sit there at home and be able to order something quickly, right? That's maybe run through a sponsor of the team, Pizza Hut or whoever it may be. So I think corporate partnerships are going to ask their partners, their properties, the players, the media companies to examine their ROI and measure their ROI different, and then push them to create that fan experience a little bit different outside the stadium. And I think Gil's perspective on the liability, Gil's perspective on the participation side of it from a grassroots level is warranted. I think at this point, the real question is whether college and pro are going to come back. And if they don't, the massive impact that it's going to take to recover from that. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're still going to play even without fans. I mentioned to Dr. Z, and I'll end it here because I know you guys are, I think, ready. Dr. Z is ready to fall out of the chair right now. So I think I saw this Premier League team over in Germany actually had their fans, their season ticket holders, pay $20, and they did a cardboard cutout of themselves. They had a picture of themselves, right? And they did a cardboard cutout, and they put all those pictures in front of where their seat would be inside the stadium. I thought it was a brilliant idea, but that's where we're thinking of now. So, anyways, that's my long-winded, easy question. So I'll end it there, boys.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, it's important to think outside the box, no question. Dr. Z, final thoughts before we sign off for today?
It's fun to wrap up with Rob here. I always love his perspective. He always brings a different angle. Listening to Gil today, he's got all those years and wealth of influence of experience from all those different spheres. He comes at it differently, and I knew that when we had him on. It wouldn't be your typical interview, and I found myself just listening and thinking, I need to play this for the vice presidents and the president as we talk about we need to have him on our conference meeting, other conferences too. So having said that, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. looking at what we have in front of us if we dot the I's and cross the T's, as he suggests. So Rob's right. I am about ready to fall out of the chair.
You're done. Yeah, you're done.
and then when you talk about cardboard cutouts, I'm a purist.
Right.
I don't know what to think. I'm just going to go play catch with my son here in an hour, and
have a catch, right, Dr.
Have
Z?
a catch. Have a catch, man.
Go have a catch.
Have a broccoli Rob sandwich and have a catch. I mean,
there you go.
What a segue into the end with our corporate sponsor,
Provenzano's Deli of West Haven. We thank the Provenzano's family for being part of our UNH Charger family for all these years. So time to wrap things up. For our producer, Broccoli Rob Thompson, for our executive producer, John Mays, for Dr. Z, I'm J-Dub. Gil Fried, thanks for being with us. And again, we certainly appreciate Provenzano's for being our title sponsor. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time here on the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast.
Thanks, guys.